I hope you're in a wake-up mood now. Okay, as you can see, I'm really not ashamed of doing stuff. Yeah, that's also why I'm going to talk about productive unemployment. Actually, I'm going to talk about unemployment, but when I say that word to people, they tend to get uncomfortable. I don't know why. Yeah, so I gave the talk the title Productive Unemployment, so that people feel like, it's not a nay, it's a yay topic. Okay, so, but, yeah, the other funny thing is that I work for Absolventa, which is a company that makes job boards. So in my team, they were all like, cool, you're giving a talk, nice. About what? About unemployment? Okay, good luck. Yeah, but in the end, they were really supportive, and they made this T-shirt extra for me with our logo and the Balkan Ruby logo and some pseudocode, and told me that they're proud of me, and so I'm happy. Okay, so I'm Kaja, and I'm on Twitter. Some of you know me maybe. I have this weird picture with the flowers on my head. I'm from West Berlin. I was born 2 years before the wall came down. And I'm also half Croatian, so shout out to the Balkan people. Woo! I'm a Ruby backend developer, and here you actually see me in my bed in my room. And you see on the sofa next to it, you see our CTO, and then you see a part of the head of a colleague. He's sitting right there. And this is what we actually do once in a while. We do something, we call it Keats work. So where we all go to someone's home and work from there, and visit the neighborhood and look at their routines in the neighborhood. And it's actually a really nice way to get to know your team better and from a different side. So I recommend doing this with your colleagues. It's really interesting. Okay, so as we already heard, I studied philosophy and historical linguistics. I don't have a computer science background, and I play football. This is my team. We call it Fußball. So for the Americans, that's soccer. Yeah, and I'm also in the organizers team of the formerly known Rails Girls Berlin, which are now called Code Curious, to be more inclusive, technology-wise, but also human-wise. Okay. Yeah, but let's go to the topic, unemployment. Okay, so as you know, I studied philosophy, and after graduating, there was no special determined path for me or a career. Nobody explicitly wanted to employ me as a philosopher, and I was really lost. I was disoriented, and I thought, what should I do now? So I went to the job center. So this is a thing in Berlin, or in Germany. We have job centers that are official, and you can go there when you're unemployed or when you just graduated from high school, from school. And yeah, so I went there and I asked for social welfare. That is called Hartz 4. So it means Hartz 4. I don't know why, it's a weird name. And it's not only for unemployed people, it's also for people, for example, the so-called working poor, people who don't earn enough money with their work and need to get extra money from the government. Yes, there are people like that. Or also people who are temporarily unable to work because of mental health issues, for example. Yeah, and the only thing is that you have to stay in Germany when you receive that welfare, so you can't travel. Yeah, so Hartz 4 is the thing that I received after graduating from university. There's a lot of stigma and shame around that. So there's a lot of jokes with the word Hartz 4. We even have a verb, like to Hartz 4 around, which means to just hang out lazy, drink a lot of beer, not do anything productive. And also if you would ask people in Germany to sketch a little picture of someone who receives Hartz 4, most of the people would sketch like a really fat belly, a man who has like no nice clothes and has a beer bottle next to him sitting on a sofa. So this is the picture that they have of people who receive Hartz IV. And I'm giving this talk today because I want to take that stigma and shame away from being unemployed. Because it was one of the best years in my life, that year that I was unemployed. It was really productive. Okay, so here are some facts. You get around 400 to 800 euros a month. Plus they also pay like your health insurance. And so I'm going to be really honest with you now. I got 650 euros a month. So I had to pay my rent and food and phone bills and train tickets and everything from that. There are also some conditions, so you don't just get it like that. And also, the first time you get to the job center, you actually stand in a long, long line for more than an hour. And it's like in the airport, this line that goes through a huge hall that circles around. And in that line, I saw different types of people, right? I saw like a lot of young mothers actually with a lot of children. I saw people who didn't speak German. I saw people who looked like they have been living on the street. And I saw myself in a different picture. Like, I thought, okay, here I'm really like the white privileged person because I was standing there with my degree from university and a really expensive snowboarding jacket and an iPhone in the hand. And I was like, I don't have children, I'm fine, you know, I just need to take care of myself. So it was already, I also got treated differently from the people there. They were seeing like, okay, she graduated, it's fine, she just needs some time. Yeah. So let's talk about the conditions. So you have to apply for jobs where you're receiving that money, a certain amount of jobs. You have to come to appointments, like once a month you have an appointment. And you have to follow job center instructions that are sometimes really weird. For example, I had to, before even receiving any money, I had to go to something that was called a support center. And we basically had to sit there for like 4 days, 8 hours a day, and do nothing. And well, that is already hard enough for me, because when I have to do something that doesn't make sense for me, it's already like, I don't feel it, I'm not okay with it. But the worst thing was that the first day, so the canteen there was closed, and the first day I didn't know about that, and I didn't have food with me, so I had to sit there for 8 hours and feel hungry, which is kind of a torture in a way. So yeah, so the next days I decided to just show up really late. I came like 2 or 3 hours late, give my signature that I'm there, and then just went out to take a phone call and walk to the next cafe and just, you know, hang out. Yeah, but afterwards, they didn't make me do anything else anymore because I told them that I don't want to. So you can apparently also say no to these things. Okay, but this kind of suffering had also made me a little bit creative. So I was like, yeah, I don't want to do these senseless things in my life. And I had attended a Rails Girls Berlin beginners workshop that actually showed me a lot about like how coding is really interesting for me and how it can bring me a lot of joy, and I'm feeling like that's what I want to do. And yeah, so it became more clear. And yeah, sorry, there's a GIF coming up, and I heard that some people get dizzy from GIFs, so thanks, Amr. So close your eyes if you get dizzy. Otherwise, look at this beautiful kitten. Yeah, so somehow I came to the conclusion I really want to learn coding and get into this and have a career in that direction. And so I went to a Code and Cake by the Rails Girls Berlin, which is like a hackathon thing, and I came up with my own pet project. that was called Edible Hood, and it was supposed to, like a Rails app to connect all the people in the neighborhood that want to grow edible fruits in the public spaces. And it was hosted by Better Place, like a fundraising company. And I met two important people there. I met Linda, another girl who just started, another woman, sorry, who just started coding, and Johannes, one of the senior developers at Better Place. And we did this Edible Hood project together, and we're coding the whole day. And Linda had told me about this awesome boot camp that just cost a lot of money, like 5,000 or 6,000 euros, but it was pretty awesome, and she was like enjoying it and learning so much. And yeah, and Johannes, he was like working there, so I asked them for an internship. I was like, Better Place is so nice, and I picture myself here working as a developer, so can I please have an internship? And I got the internship, and I got to see a 10-year-old code base, almost 10-year-old code base back then, and yeah, real like Rails app with everything. There was a team of around 5 developers, and they were using Scrum as a project management. So I learned also to use GitHub in that time. I learned how to write tests. I learned how to write validations. So that was really like the basic stuff for me. And I could ask, like look over their shoulders and ask like, oh cool, what does it mean when it says get? Or put, and they were like, yeah, that's a request, that's the internet. And I was like, okay, this is how the internet works, cool. Yeah, I mean, in philosophy, you never learn this kind of things. And back at the job center, I was like, yeah, that was so fun, the internship, and can I please have this boot camp? And they said no, and then I went back like a second time. And I said, come on, please, can I have this boot camp? That's really nice, and it's going to make me have an awesome job afterwards. And they were like, no. So, sorry, there's another gift coming up. And then I said, come on, please, the third time that I went. I really need this. I've been doing this study groups, like Ruby study groups and everything, you know, I'm really dedicated. And they were like, okay. So they paid for this boot camp, and I was like, yay! And went to this 3 months boot camp. It was a really nice mentored program that was remote, so I could just hang out in my room and just code on different Rails apps and use like new things that I didn't know before. And the coaches were always there via Slack, and we had mentored Skype calls and reviews, code reviews that were really good. And I created my first Rails app that was like, or actually the second one after Edible Hood, but yeah, so it was, back then I was really into surfing, so it was like some kind of surf shop. I used like payment systems like Stripe for the first time and learned about some cool gems. I learned about the CRUD architecture and what it actually meant. But I also learned, wow, so there's like the production world. And I learned how to deploy an app to Heroku and use some add-ons like Redis or SendGrid or Postgres. I learned about all these things, and it was really helpful for me to understand more about how the internet actually works. Yeah, so but then I was, after the boot camp, it ended in the end of like 2016, and I was like, yeah, what should I do next, you know? And in the org team of the Rails Girls Berlin back then, we were talking about the Rails Girls Summer of Code, which is like a scholarship program for open source coding during the summer. And yeah, I did that. I applied for a project at Discourse, and together with a woman that I didn't know back then. Her name is Jen, and she's from Spain, and she's awesome, but I didn't know her. I didn't know what I was getting into, and we were just spontaneously finding each other and applying for that summer of code. Bye. Yeah, and we were the team called Team Berlin Diamonds. Our project was to build a plugin that syncs backup files to different providers. So they thought like, let's start with one plugin, you know, and see how far you get. We have this little like default backup to Amazon S3, but we want to also back up the app to Google Drive. And then maybe, if you succeed, to another provider. So yeah, we actually in the end built plugins to all these providers, and we were pretty fast in our project. We had an awesome team. We were not only the two of us, but a lot of coaches that we had, and also like our project mentor from Discourse, Evil Trout. Yesterday we were eating trouts, and I was like, okay, that's a trout, and he's Evil Trout. There's the connection. So yeah, so he's dedicated to this persona, and he even has a tattoo on his arm of an evil trout. He showed us on Skype. And we had a supervisor, Luca, who's really active in Berlin in the Ruby community and really nice. And yeah, so this is basically what the plugin architecture looked like back then. People are always asking me, like, is a plugin in Discourse, is it a gem? And I'm always like, no, they have their own kind of weird architecture. Back then they had this, I don't know if you can see it, it's a bit dark, but they have like this way of putting like a class eval to the backup class and breaking it open and then modifying it from the outside, which I didn't know much about meta-programming back then, but I was like, that sounds pretty brutal, like that sounds kind of nasty to break a class and then modify it afterwards from the outside. I don't know if I'm okay with it, and I told that to Evil Trout. I was like, Evil Trout, it sounds really nasty, and I don't know, maybe we can change the plugin structure a little bit. And he was like, yeah, that's a nice idea. We actually also don't like that. So yeah, so we changed it to a more clean thing that is like an event that is triggered through the app and is loaded by an engine. Yeah, that was really fun. And then we published our plugins, and we got the first feedback from our users. And there was one who's like really enthusiastic, and he was like, yeah, maybe we should put it into the core app, and it's so cool. But then there was like coding horror. I don't know if you know him, Jeff Atwood. He's like, no, they need to be much more tested, and nobody ever got fired for picking Amazon S3. And we're like, okay, thank you. At least they're discussing about this thing now. Yeah, so then there was the next person having the first problems. So, something is not working. I tried to trigger the job manually twice in Sidekick, but it fails. And me and Jen, we were like, oh, shit, we need to fix this, and started fixing it. And then also we got, like, afterwards, the thank you from that person, like, thanks, now it works, and we were so happy. And that was a good feeling, like suddenly putting out code into production that people are using, and you get this feedback. And I realized that like this kind of open source coding is also really interactive thing. Yeah, so we had a really awesome journey and metamorphosed from this like confused beginners to like super pros, feeling confident about our code. And that was a nice journey. After the summer of code, I was still unemployed though. So, and during the summer of code, I was wondering about this, right? But the good thing was that I was actually doing the summer of code at a coaching company. Maybe some of you can guess it was Absolventa. So, so I was like going there every day, working in their office and like doing my open source project. And I started to really annoy them with the idea of like, hey, maybe I can work here afterwards. What do you think? So I started to drop that every day in every conversation, and it became a running gag. It was like whenever I could, I was just like, oh, it would be, don't you think it would be so nice if I worked here? I could solve these problems that you have. And the CTO was first like, yeah, we can talk about this in the end, you know, but at some point I really felt like insecure, like what's going to happen after the summer of code, so I really pressured him a lot. And he gave up and he was like, yeah, okay, you can work here, it's fine. And it was actually nice because I didn't have to apply for the job. He had seen me working for 3 months next to him. So he was like, just let's go to that meeting room. We sit down. He's like, actually, I saw your journey there and it really impressed me how fast you advanced in your knowledge. And so is it okay if I pay you this money? And I'm like, that's my first job, like anything is okay, you know, just thank you. I was really happy and I really like the people. They're like super nice team. One of my colleagues is here, you can talk to him. I have a mentor, which was really important for me, you know, to not get thrown into this kind of team of only juniors and everyone's just like, I don't know how to write proper code. No, I had a mentor and he would sit down with me and explain stuff and like give me a path to follow. And they're doing Rails as well. And yeah, this is a photo of us eating pasta and playing kicker. Yeah, so what else happened afterwards? So the job center lady is really happy now because, you know, she was looking at me like a problem, but now I'm actually the solution who's paying way more taxes back than I ever received from the job center. So for her, it was a win-win situation too. Yeah, I learned how to contribute to open source code, which is also actually really important thing that I learned is, yeah, you kind of have to have time to contribute to open source code. And now I'm working 40 hours a week on mostly private code, right? So now I don't contribute so much anymore. Like sometimes we open source things, but when I was unemployed, I was actually doing things for the community, which is not a thing to be ashamed of. It's pretty awesome and we should all appreciate that. I learned to work with teams. That was also an important thing during the summer of code. I think it's good that they force you to always apply in pairs of 2, because we, like Jen and me, we also had a fight during the project and we had to call our supervisor to sit down with us and like, yeah, okay, I didn't mean it. Like each one of us is really kind of narcissist about their own code, and then when you disagree about something, you know, it was a good lesson for me to learn to not get too attached to my own code, but rather think of the project itself and take my own vanity out from there and learn like, hey, we're a team, we both want to do the same thing in the end. I learned that I can do anything, I just have to ask 3 times for it. So that was like a really important lesson, like ask for the bootcamp 3 times, ask for a job somewhere, you know, just be consistent and just annoy people a lot. So that was nice. And I learned that I can code actually, that, you know, I can put stuff out into production and it works and people are using it. Yes, and I learned that being unemployed is nothing to be ashamed of. So that was a really nice lesson, and I think it's really, like next time when someone tells you that they're unemployed or when you are unemployed, please don't feel ashamed. Like take the shame out and just talk openly about this. And also appreciate the time that you have, because in the end, I chose not to work as a waitress in that time. I chose to take time in order to plan something for my life. And that brought me forward a lot. And I was not lazy in that time. Yeah, so, and I learned that being unemployed is also a privilege. So I know that in Germany we get this kind of money if we, under some conditions, right? But for example, my boyfriend in Morocco, when he doesn't work, he doesn't have food, he doesn't have a place to stay, he is like super poor if he doesn't work. There's like no help and no social welfare. So actually this unemployment time that I could take was a big privilege. So I understood that also later, that no, this is actually a cool thing. And the job center, as much as they annoyed me, they also kind of helped me and supported me throughout that time. Yeah, and I used the situation to get the job that I really, really wanted. So, yeah, goal achieved. You can ask me questions later in the hall. And thanks.